Hello, everyone. We have nobody but us. Okay, 10 attendees. There are 4 attendees so far. All right, and they're joining as we speak. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. And so, Johnny, how much of an introduction do you want?
It could be rather simple. I'm sure
All right.
everyone's more interested in the content, so
Yes.
happy to jump right
So
in.
my name is Lane Booker. I'm the secretary of CSINext, and I'm a former member of the board of directors of the National Institute of Building Sciences, which is where I met Johnny. When I met him, I was assigned to be the liaison to the Building Smart Alliance, one of the councils with NIBS, and it subsequently became the Building Information Management Council, and now it is the Digital Technology Council. And I got reassigned to another council later, but apparently I put in enough time and effort to entitle me to one of these nice V4 challenge coins that Johnny sent me. So apparently I did something, and seems like we spun our wheels a lot, but it's now out there. And so without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Johnny Fortune, who is the NIBS Executive Director for the National BIM program. And Johnny, I'm going to let you take it away.
That's good. Thank you so much. I will jump to sharing screen so we can dive in. And just let me say, Lane, thank you for your years of volunteerism and service. And certainly you did and continue to have an impact, a very positive impact. So again, thanks for all that you have done and continue to do. All right, so just to verify real quick, you can see my screen. All right. Let me know if otherwise. So today, thank you for the opportunity to come and share this information with you. I'll be talking about the National BIM Standard version 4 that Lane mentioned. It is new and updated, and it's specifically aimed to provide tools for the project team. As mentioned, some of the things that I do with NIBS program and product and project management, kind of multiple facets. The National BIM standard is something that I was involved in many years ago as a volunteer, and then became part of the staff, and then ultimately here for the publication last phase of the standard, led the publication aspect of the standard. So happy to be here with you. Won't belabor any more of my bio, but this is a brief description of the session. Again, I won't read it. I think this is probably included in the mail out, but it's in the slide deck, and I'll have a PDF available that can be distributed and viewed later. So it is here as part of the leave behind. Just a quick look at our agenda for today. We've had our introduction. I'll give you a little bit of history of the National BIM standard, an overview of version 4. We'll talk about its modular content structure. We'll have, I hope, plenty of time for open discussion or questions, or you can queue your questions up. Lane, you'll have to guide me if mics are enabled or not. And then I'll try to summarize it. Inserting and squeezing in here, I'd like to just actually bring the NBIMS version 4 the website up on screen and just kind of talk through some of it. I think it's can be even more effective than a PowerPoint. So we'll take a look at that as well, as time permits. So just a little bit about the National Institute of Building Sciences that Lane mentioned and volunteered for many years. Basically, we were created by the U.S. Congress and established through legislation. And basically, our job is to be a convener between government and a private sector, bringing all these interests together. Our vision is all about improving lives, so we serve the public good, and our mission is to serve the public interest by advancing building science and technology for the built environment. Um, just some more introductory information. We do work with a lot of different agencies, and kind of our areas of focus are code and standards, government affairs, workforce development is another key focus area of ours. And then we do a lot of work through our councils, a lot of volunteer councils, again, Building Information Management Council, recently renamed to Digital Technology Council, has been the council in which the National BIM standard and National CAD standard have been developed. And our name change for that council denotes continual improvement. So we're always looking to have improvement. All right, so let's dive into what this is all about today. Well, basically managing structured information. It's just paramount for any project and organizational success. Today we have so much more data than we know what to do with, and sometimes that data, it being unstructured, it's we have it, we have a lot of data, but we don't know what to do with it. We can't really find the data. We sometimes don't even know how to check the data for integrity, quality, and so it just creates this influx of all this information that that we really can't harness in its current state. So a lot of the initiatives that we talk about, including the National BIM standard, is really trying to move from that fragmented state to a more standardized state. Let's really begin to harness and be able to use something with all this data that is being generated and collected and stored. And so one way to do that in basic performance improvement is to standardize, to have a standard, to have documentation that supports that standardization. And so one of the main pieces that enable us to do that is the National BIM standard. And again, I'll have this QR code up a little later. You can see the address. It's pretty easy to get to, and you can peruse that site as you please. But again, this will be a part of the PDF that I'll make available, and certainly you can review it later. So let me just highlight one aspect of the National BIM standard and its vision. It's not just about building, even though building information management is part of the name. It is also about infrastructure, and there's a big movement in infrastructure to basically call it BIM for infrastructure. There was a few other names that kind of came out in recent years, but they didn't really stick. And now, Federal Highway Administration and a lot of the DOTs and others in the infrastructure realms kind of started to migrate to this idea of BIM for infrastructure. And so the National BIM standard is specifically version 4, is a lot about making it applicable to both horizontal and vertical construction. And at the heart of it is really high quality data that enables better facility or asset information and management. So just a really brief history of NBIMS version 4. The first version was in 2007. It really was just an overview and principles and some methodology of how to put together a national BIM standard. I remember I worked for an architecture firm at the time. I remember seeing it and I thought, well, these are great ideas, but there wasn't much meat to it. And that was all that was in version 1. Version 2 came along, and it was an approach where it basically compiled different industry standards, including some information from CSI and OmniClass and Uniformat, different aspects. Version 3 came along, and it updated that compilation, again, including some of the pieces from CSI as well as other organizations like BIM Forum, LOD, SPEC, and some Building Smart international information. Version 4 came along, and we really just took a different approach because up to then it kind of had been, a compilation of different standards in one place with different references. And so with version 4, the approach shifted to see, well, where are the gaps for standardization? And then we still reference all of those standards, again, like some of CSI's products, but we didn't regurgitate it and republish it in any way. There are more references to those industry standards, and we focus more on novel content to really address some of the gaps in the industry. So version 4 is a different approach. And as you can see in the graphic below, it's a little bit subtle, but version 1 through 3 was more of available in a PDF, kind of a publication type format. And NBIMS version 4 is now solely web-based, and so search functions and features and ability to hyperlink, permalinks, so that can be included in contract language. So a few of the objectives we started out with when we started with version 4 several years ago. You can scan the list. A couple of things that I did want to highlight would be that it's all about open standards. We wanted a modular structure to make sure that different pieces could be updated independently without updating the entire standard. And then this desire to make sure that there were pieces of this standard that could be referenced in contract documents, and that would help add a little meat and substance to the requirements for BIM for any given organization. Obviously, we want it to be more user friendly, and that's the purpose of moving to almost solely a web medium for people to access it. And then we wanted to make sure that it aligned with international standards, and then also to support the horizontal construction to kind of get away from vertical only. So where does the national BIM standard sit? There's a lot of other standards on the far left. We have international standards. These tend to be general frameworks, very general. Some of them get into specifics like IFC, industry foundation class, and different formats for exchanging information. And then on the far right is the project level requirements, and these are things like the BIM contract requirements and some of the ASHRAE documents. In the middle is where we have our national standards, and you can kind of see we've also included the CSI classification systems there, certainly a very important part of our national standard framework. But where we see the national BIM standard is basically this piece here that helps connect all the other pieces. It's where the COBie schema lives and documentation related to it, and then also it contains several different aspects that we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. So just going to pause for just a moment and just remind everybody, I think there's probably a way that you could put in some questions in the chat, and then Lane, you can tell me if people are able to open their mics and ask questions, but happy to make sure we start queuing those up.
Yeah, Johnny, I've got the question pane open, and so if you have a question, type it into the question Q&A pane, and I'll keep monitoring those. And I don't know that we can open up the mics, but we will try to get to your questions as timely as possible. And yes, Johnny, CSI classification systems are important to us.
Yeah.
And by the way, CSI is how I found NBIMS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're very connected.
Members of the National CAD standard 27 years ago or something like that, and that's how I got involved with NBIMS. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very a very close relationship in developing standards, and the whole uniform drawing system is certainly a part of the national CAD standard, and CSI is a long-time valued partner in producing that standard. So maybe in the future we can give you some more updates on the NCS and the happenings there. Back to the national BIM standard, just some, this is basically the modular structure. We have an overview or an introduction. These are indented, kind of for a reason, because of the way that they build off of each other. A completely brand new section is the Project BIM Requirements. And again, each one of these I'll hit on briefly. A component of overall Project BIM Requirements is a BIM Execution Plan, and that BIM Execution Plan references BIM Uses that are more detailed about how BIM would be executed on a given project. The Information Exchange Guidelines is an evolving area. One of those in particular is the COBie version 3. And I know that's a little confusing. COBie kind of runs on a different version schedule than NBIMS, because there was intermediate, but just realized that National BIM Standard version 4 contains the latest version of COBie, which happens to be version 3. clear as mud. All right, but yes, COBie is construction to operations building information exchange. So it's a way of exchanging information about a facility, building, or site in a specified format and schema so that it can be computer read.
And Johnny, version
Yes.
3, as I recall, represents a significant improvement over previous versions. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was one of the big things is a terminology change to try to get away from building specific terminology so that it could be for uh, also for infrastructure. And then they tried to improve and modernize it, some of the terminology, and then improve ease of use. And there were some pieces that were just like the industry really never needed some components. So there was some reduction of some other data fields and some addition of data fields that were missing. So yes, very much so. Thank you. All right, so this is kind of the basic outline and structure of NBIMS, the modules. In each one of those modules, there's different content types that include standards. It also includes guidelines or narrative language to help provide the rationale for some of the requirements. There's resources such as templates, and then there's information exchange definitions in some of the modules. So kind of breaking that down a little further, it's a lot to take in, but basically each one of those main sections, you can kind of see the type of content based on those icons, as well as a label for them. So this is very just a general 30,000 foot view of it. So now if we look at some of these modules, and again, we'll look at them very briefly. There's a ton of information there, but we'll look at it at a pretty high level, try to get over to the website and kind of show it a little bit more to you. In general, just for the entire standard overview, and you'll see this repeating theme across these slides. We list the goal, we list what is the core content of that section, and then also we list who's the intended audience and what kind of value does it bring to that audience. So these slides are very, very helpful. You can go back and reference them to kind of understand which section is pertinent to an audience member and what kind of value is anticipated or expected to receive out of that section. So again, we really wanted our overall goal was basically to provide some adoption strategies that's focused on the different user types. So recognizing that interests are a little bit different from an owner perspective, obviously, than an AE perspective, from a contractor or subcontractor perspective. So we kind of list those out. You can kind of scan them as we go through, and again, go back and read them at your leisure. But the introduction is obviously about promoting understanding, helping people navigate and find their way through the product, as well as also some consolidation in that main area of terms and terminology and definitions, acronyms, so you're not having to kind of bounce around and figure things out across modules. So the first main module outside of that overview is the Project BIM Requirements. And again, this was completely new. And I'll go through these slides. You can kind of scan them visually. Again, you know the format now. But I'll also talk about some key aspects that are not represented on the slides. So the Project BIM Requirements, again, this was incredible, brand new. There was a development team that did a deep dive content analysis. They basically gathered all the type of contract language that they could find. We had some support from University of Washington. Dr. Carrie Dosick and a doctoral student also helped us on this and did some very deep dive analysis. It basically looked at a lot of different contract language and tried to distill it down to what are the common denominators that we see on most or all of these different contract requirements, and that distilled down into this module. So again, it's important for the owner. It's important for those who are proposing, responding to RFPs. It's important for the project team once they get going. It really outlines. In general, it outlines what is the owner's project requirements related to BIM for the project, excuse me. It has different pieces. There's an executive, a management piece, and a working and technical. And you can kind of see as you scan the list, these are the things that are in there: quality management, other plans, legal, intellectual property. Under the actual management is the BIM Execution Plan, or BEP. It lays out things like a CDE, a common data environment. It also has the working and technical aspects, such as what particular BIM uses and what are the model requirements for any given project. Up next is just a quick sample of that. And so you can kind of see on the left, there's a sample of the standard, what you would see on the website. And then there's also an example that is given in the resources section where you can actually download it, and then you can put in your information. And it has default values and text inside there. So, if you're not sure, it's like here's kind of what is commonly put in these sections, and it's completely editable, and you can revise it for your particular project. Here's also a little sample guideline that's there, and again, well, I'll pull that up on screen and show that to you. It does, and all the guidelines for all the sections really cover these main aspects. There's guidelines for each section. It says, talks about what's the basics of that standard, how you should use it, how it was developed, how it aligns with other standards. And so you kind of see that recurring theme across the different modules. So that's the Project BIM Requirements module. And again, brand new, complete write of all of the results of the content analysis. So next is the BIM Execution Planning. And this is very common term throughout the industry, is to have a BIM execution plan. This has been in the National BIM Standard since version 2. And it's a lot of work that's been done by our friends over at Penn State University and Dr. John Messner, who's also, both him and Dr. Carrie Dosick from UW has been very much involved. They were on the planning committee and helped lead this effort for multiple years, working alongside with Lane and others at NBIMS. So the BIM Execution Planning section, and again, it is a deep content analysis. And while the Project BIM Requirements group went out and looked for all kind of contract documentation and language and found the common denominators, the BEP group went and tried to find as many completed BIM execution plans as they could, as many examples, as many templates. And again, they pulled it all together and did a deep content analysis to find the common denominators. And so for the owner, this is really about having a template that you could use across all of your projects and have consistency and be able to review those for those who are proposing for the document. It gives them guidance on what they're going to have to deliver and produce should they be awarded the project. And then the project team it's really kind of a guideline, a map that guides them through delivering on that BIM execution. Again, as you saw before, it's kind of the same format. You can see there's a sample from the standard, there's a sample from the guideline. Again, you can view these at the website, and I'll bring it up on screen in a few minutes. And then I guess one thing I would really highlight here is that in the resources section, it's a completely different approach. Previously, BEPs were generally Word documents. And anybody who's had the pleasure of working on one of those and checking them and trying to keep it updated as a living document knows that it is a little unwieldy. And oftentimes it's not updated. It's intended to be a living document that kind of keeps an ongoing record of things happening and changing in the project in terms of the requirements. But it's very difficult to maintain, and furthermore, it didn't and doesn't really map to a database from a Word format. So one of the big changes for this is the migration to basically an Excel file spreadsheet, which is structured data, which can be mappable to different types of databases, regardless of what the owner or facilities manager may use. So this puts it into a structured data format. It simplifies it and tries to get away from, so much from a narrative perspective and writing paragraphs about what you're going to do to more of more detail and more data-centric approach rather than as much of a narrative approach. There's a couple of different formats. There's process maps available, and then a JSON for those that want to dive in technical on the geeky level and map things automatically, those are available. The next module, the third of 4 modules, is the BIM use definitions, and as the name might indicate, it's basically a library of BIM uses. And one of the goals here was just to make sure that BIM uses could be adequately defined. And there's a little bit of a difference between a BIM use and what we're really going for here was kind of a glossary of BIM uses and definitions of BIM uses, not necessarily prescribing to people exactly how to do that, exactly how to take the BIM use and turn it into a use case. But we know that we needed to start with, these basic definitions and making sure that they were solid. And so there's a few changes that happened there. It did incorporate what was in previous versions of NBIMS and common BIM use terms. In terms of the owner and project team, obviously it's a communication tool to make sure that both parties or all parties on the project understand what is meant by a BIM use and how it will be applied on the project. So a little bit of background on this, just over several decades, there's so many different BIM uses. The Penn State BIM Execution Planning Guide, which became a part of the National BIM Standard, and by no means, please do not attempt to read all these. It's just showing the context of how many different terms that there were out there, and compiled a massive list of terms, and then began to kind of distill those down and build them into an, using the ontology by Dr. Kreider that was developed for version 3 of NBIMS, and basically then kind of further distilled those down into logical categories and updated the BIM uses. This might look familiar if you've looked at some of this from the Penn State documents in the past or previous versions of NBIMS. But basically there was some name updates, some consolidation, simplifying them a bit. And so we also included a methodology for how these were built, how they were reviewed, and then did some mapping with previous versions of NBIMS, and then what really kind of got distilled down. And what you'll see is that some of them were a little bit redundant, and so some of them were consolidated into more higher level categorical type BIM uses, understanding that that's the definition of a BIM use and not necessarily a use case. We really tried to make the distinction between the two, that a BIM use is really the purpose. It again is the definition, it's the glossary term, but to put it to work, you have to identify what method you're going to execute that BIM use, and then what's the outcome of that BIM use. And so the example on screen is capture conditions, and it could be your method could be UAV with photogrammetry, it could be weather sensor devices, and then what's the outcome of that particular method, and you can see how those can vary, but they still fall under that same high level category of capturing conditions. For each one of the BIM uses, we had all of these different attributes that the group defined, and again, the whole National BIM Standard was really developed by different work groups and committees, and that developed this content, and we vetted this content and then put it out for public comment and review, a 90-day period. And basically the planning committee and the overall project committee then voted on the content. And so it was really a long process to go through to reach a consensus-based standard. These are the attributes that apply to each BIM use, and then there's just a few examples on screen. Again, it'll be easier to see on the website what they are. Fast forward to COBie, and again, it went from 2.4 to 3 because they had an intermediate one, and that's the reason for a little bit of a difference in the version numbers. But COBie again is Construction to Operations Building Information Exchange. It is a data format. It's all about maintaining assets. It's not graphical. It's typically something that would happen at handover. There's 4 categories that they really focused in on improvement: ease of use, modernization, capabilities, and workflow. I'll kind of just quickly go through these slides. Again, you can review these later with the leave behind, but you can kind of see some of the things that were improved in COBie latest version of COBie. One that I do like to highlight is the renaming of data fields and headers to better understand their purpose. And so I think that's great. They removed some barely used tables, and then they did some resorting to make it easier to use. In terms of the modernization, again, the example of replacing the floor data table with level to accommodate infrastructure projects, the JSON format that really helps, more automated machine type activities, computer related activities. The capabilities, again, they included a new part of data field so that you could better understand hierarchical relationships. And then workflow, again, adding data tables to better document the activities of a facility, especially between the handover between project teams and owners. So that is a very brief overview of National BIM Standard. Again, here's that QR code that I promised would be back up on screen. And just as a reminder, why are we doing all this? It's all about the moving from a fragmented state to a standardized state. So we actually can harness this very valuable data that's being produced every day by project teams. And oftentimes what you happen is a very siloed approach where one group or subgroup of the project team is creating information, and then there's kind of an information loss or drop as it goes to the next participant. And ultimately we want to get all the way to the owner where they are able to use these and basically make all the project aspects be more efficient. Now, with that, I'll pause here and see if there's any questions queued up for us.
Well, Johnny, we have one question in the question pane, but it is, where do we find it online? So you've given us the QR code to go to it, but it is on the NBIMS website.
Yeah.
And if you look for, I think, our work or the councils and click on Digital Technology Council, it's one of the projects that is there, and you can see the standard online. And just a comment about seeing it online versus downloading tons of PDFs and Excel files like version 3, the online aspect was intended to be more interactive in updates, trying to continuously improve it versus getting to a point and then posting a huge update. And not everybody finishes their work on time or at the same time. So some of the modules have been coming online earlier and later than others. And so it's been a kind of an interesting process to see that. I think the 2023 Building Innovations Conference, it was announced, and then it was a soft launch, and you couldn't see it unless you had that link you got at the conference, but now it's fully available, Mark. So
That's a great segue to the website. Hopefully you can see the website on screen now in front of the PowerPoint. But yeah, if you could simply nibs.org is our website. There's a couple of ways to get there. Probably one of the easiest is if you just scroll down into our news or the latest section here. There's a NBIMS-US V4 launch. And as you simply click on learn more, it'll take you straight to it. Or you could use the QR code, or there's different ways to get there. And as Lane mentioned, it is under Solutions and Digital Technology Council. And there's probably a couple more fast links to get there, but this is our entire Digital Technology Council, and there is a reports and standards. And there you can find also the National CAD Standard, National BIM Guide for Owners, and Digital Twins for the Built Environment. The top of the list is the beloved National BIM Standard US that you can access there. Once you get on the site, you basically have this splash page. There's a couple of different ways to access the standard from the menu up here, or access the standard here. There's a more, I would recommend, this is a little bit of a video we recorded with the planning committee chair, Dr. John Messner from Penn State. Looks like it's about 12 minutes. There's some really good information. It just kind of gives you a lot of that background and such. So that is a good start to look at the standard. And then as you can see, once you access the standard, here are all the different pieces and parts that I talked about. There's certainly a way to get involved and put your information in for the next cycle of updates, which has not started yet, but those contact information goes into a database if you want to participate there. Here are the main overview type sections, and again, these all have a different purpose. One of them, like the summary, it really talks about, you can see some of the same imagery that I used in the PowerPoint. Again, how the framework applies, but there's a lot more there. Like in that introduction, those who are familiar with ISO 19650, which is basically application of BIM, it's an international standard related to BIM information management. There's different parts of it, and this is specifically part 2. So it shows you how, if you're interested in that level of information, it shows you how that the national BIM standard aligns with ISO 19650, the international standard. And so that is a really good way to get up to speed on it. And then a couple of other things that I would mention is terms and definitions. Every term and definition that you see in the module, this is a one-stop shop place where you can see all those terms and definitions. And same thing for references and resources. So any of the references that are used, this is a master place for all the references. And any of the resources that you find within individual modules are also repeated on this level. And then we did that on purpose so you didn't have to dive down and multiple clicks to try to get to, if you just want the template, you've read it, you just need just the template. That's a quick way to get there.
Speaking of references and resources, in version 3, those were part of the standard, and that caused some problems. And
yeah,
anyway, much better to have it as basically a kind of an appendix, and not have to have a vote on including various standards. And every time it gets updated, you have to readopt it.
Yeah, so a great example of that is with version 3, the previous version, like various OmniClass tables. And so for each one of those OmniClass tables had to go through a ballot system to be included in the National BIM standard. And then on top of that, there's certainly all of the, the IP rights and, having all the right legal language. So yeah, we've moved away from trying to incorporate directly into the National BIM standard those pieces, and move more to providing links, reference information, citations to get to the actual source. That's better for everybody, because you don't want something in the past that had been kind of incorporated in, and then if there was an update to it, then there's a discrepancy between the two. And so that's one of the problems we're trying to solve with the change. At the bottom, there's the 4 modules. As you scroll down, and I just talked about the Project BIM Requirements. And we have an acronym for most of these so that they're easy to reference. So this one is the PBR, not to be confused with Professional Bull Riding or Pabst Blue Ribbon, but it is the Project BIM Requirements. And so yes, as you look at Project BIM Requirements, you'll see that there's an overview. And you will see this standard format across these modules. For each one of them, there's an overview. For each one of them, there's a standard menu on the right. You can jump to those sections. You can basically, jump down and look at like security section, so you can kind of see all of the different pieces of that. And then also at the top, there is a guideline, which is more about implementing it. It kind of gives you the narrative behind it, the rationale, how to begin to put it to practice. And then again, resources. And this is where for this particular module, there's only one resource. It's the template and example language. And also we have, the breadcrumbs, which is nice. You can easily get back. I'll probably show you maybe one more, the BIM Execution Planning. Again, you'll have those same overview, standard, guidelines, and resources. And you can see the standard. This one probably has a little bit longer guideline. It goes into a lot of detail about the different sections, and there's process maps and relation maps, mind maps that helps describe it. It really is a guide to putting together a BEP. And then, once once you're ready, you have the standard components, you have the guideline, then you also have the resources. You can see there's a lot more resources related to this particular one that includes, not to be overlooked, is a model element tables. So there's two different ones, one for buildings and one for infrastructure. And again, those model element tables uses the CSI uniformat structure to help categorize those different tables, and there's actually multiple columns that reference, if you're trying to look at it from a uniformat standpoint, or you're trying to look at it from a master format standpoint. So that's real handy to have those mappings available to you. And then maybe just because it's a little different, we'll look at the BIM use definition library, and what you'll see is that there's one change. There's not really guidelines on the BIM uses because again, they're more like just definitions, and so you can kind of see we have a very short table here of each one of them that's a definition with a permalink that if you want to look more at what is the generate estimate, and we'll learn more about that. Click on the permalink. It basically takes you back to the main page, and here you can read all of the different parameters that I listed. All those categories and the parameters like methods and tools, what are typically related to this particular BIM use of generate estimates. It also has a lot of resources. If you want to look at those, look them up. That's where the information originally came from. And and another one I think that is very helpful is the related terms, because while we say generate estimates, we just realized with all the compiling of different BIM use terminology that it's very helpful to have those listed. And so that's a good way to go to the website, and you're like, if you're just simply looking for, and you use the term quantity takeoff, it's going to help locate you to this spot so you can read more about the BIM use. And I guess to be thorough, I should, probably go back and look at COBie just to give you a glance at that for those who are interested in it. Again, the standard, it's a real breakdown of many of the things that I talked about today and how things have changed. So there's version updates that are there as well. One piece in particular, I'm going to scroll way down to the bottom, and there's a lot of tables there, and there's the JSON format. There is a change log. So those that really want to know what changed line by line, there is a change log in the COBie module that really tells you the things that were changed. And so that's a lot of information. I hope you are finding it helpful. I know we got some time. If we have questions that are queued up in the chat, I tried to reserve some time at the end for any Q&A or comments. Even if it's not a question, if you have a comment you want to share, happy to try to address it. And I'll put the QR code back up on screen for those that want to go and explore.
I don't see any additional questions, but if you do have a question, please type it into the Q&A pane. I find it interesting that you have PBR and BUD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Planning committee must drink a lot of beer. I don't
know. Maybe so. I was about to say that I don't think it was intentional, but I can't really say that. I don't know.
When you were talking about the BIM execution plans and looking at other BIM execution plan templates, I know that I connected AI's documents committee with the planning committee, and I think Dr. Dosick at least was a liaison looking at some of the drafts of the new digital practice documents that were released a couple years ago, which includes an exhibit that allows you to designate a model or models as a contract document, which we're pretty proud of that concept. Hopefully it doesn't get thrown out in court or something, but it's an interesting idea. And that was one of the presentations I saw at Building Innovations this year.
Yeah. Also,
digital twin. You want to talk about digital twin for a moment?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a great, both of those are great topics. And you're exactly right. There is movement. I would say that we're actually seeing in terms of model as a legal document, I think we're seeing even faster progress towards that in infrastructure. Obviously, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, which allocated a lot of funding towards improving infrastructure, and a lot of that was around also technology improvements and efficiency. It is very interesting that they have had several projects through different DOTs where they've already moved to requiring the model as the legal document, as the deliverable. And we've been talking about it in the vertical world for a while, and it has been a challenge. And I think now we do have some contract language out there that helps support it. I don't know that it's adopted as fast, but I do think there are some issues with it, and that's one of the pieces that we've tried to work on is bringing people, experts from the legal community related to the built environment together in a forum where we can start working through it, because we've had a lot of discussions with AEs, and we've got and contractors and owners, but I don't think we've sufficiently had the legal folks and insurance folks in the room, and they're a big part of us being able to move towards the model as a legal document. I would, on the second piece for digital twins, I would point you to the Digital Technology Council. Again, it's just nibs.org at DTC. And again, one of those reports that we did was the digital twins for the built environment. It's free and available for download. There's a brief description there, but I'll give you the summary of what of this, and that is that we basically developed a group of pulled together a group of volunteers that wanted to start talking about the relationship between digital twins and BIM, because there's so much confusion about that. And digital twins was a big hype word for a while, and AI has probably overshadowed it by now, but definitely digital twins is an important concept. So what is a digital twin? How does it relate to BIM? Does it replace BIM? And so all of that is explored in this position paper. So this group of different, over 40 different subject matter experts from across the nation who had some experience in exploring digital twins and even creating digital twins really came together, and they brought all of their thoughts together and hashed out this position paper on that relationship. And that is seen as the first piece. That was the first piece, and this was back in June of last year that it was published. The second piece of that was NIBS held a conference in December at the Gaylord National Harbor, and that entire conference, was devoted to digital twins. And I think I can pull up that website for you. It should just be buildinginnovation.org /ETS, and I can certainly put that in the meeting notes. And so this is an event that we had, but the reason I'm pointing it out is you can still go to this website, even though the event happened in December. And if you look on this website, there is a schedule button, and there is each one of these, and hopefully I pick on one that's not just a talk. As long as there was a presentation, you can go and download the presentation for those individual sessions. So if you look on here, look on the schedule for building innovation, go down to any of the individual topics. If you see something that's of interest to you, simply click on it, and then there's a presentation that's available that you can download or see right in your browser. So I'm telling you, there's so much good information about digital twins that happened in this conference. And again, I think we just realized we had a couple days conference and several sessions. We just realized we were just touching the surface of the topic, and there's much work to be done in that area as well. So those are great. Those are very, very good resources. And then I would be remiss if I don't tell you about something that's coming up. And the building innovation, the ETS was Emerging Technologies series, and we had that in December. But it's also a little bit of a spinoff of our main conference, which is happening at Tyson's Corner in Virginia, or right outside of DC, May 19th through the 21st. And I do believe the early bird registration will be ending maybe in March. So this is our main conference, so it will cover things like National BIM Standard, topics around data. There will be a technology track, but not only a technology track with standards and digital twins, et cetera. It will be, it'll also include other important aspects of the built environment, things like resiliency and sustainability. It will also cover things like workforce development. Anything that affects and impacts the built environment is really an area that NIBS has obviously special interest in, and so those areas will be covered in a lot of detail. So I again just want to kind of start wrap it up here. I think we're in the last few minutes. Just a reminder, everything that we're trying to do is trying to move to standardization. And I also wanted to provide, some of my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. Please, no solicitations. But I get a lot of those, and I can't answer all of them. But yeah, if you want more information about the National BIM standard, the National CAD standard, those are two products that I'm managing for NIBS, and happy to share updates on those two products. And then if you want to get involved in any of these committees, certainly happy to help you get involved or connect you to the right person. Just a very brief reminder, digital technology is not the only thing that NIBS does. We do have a lot of other interest areas and other councils. The Facilities Management and Operations Council is one, just to mention a few. And also we manage the whole building design guide. So many of you are probably familiar with those federal specifications and guidelines and documents that are stored there. So happy to help any of you that I can. And please reach out. And if you want more information or want to get involved, feel free to reach out to me there, or simply go to nibs.org. And I think you'll find on our main page, there's, I believe you scroll down to the bottom, there's different ways to get involved. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. I'm happy to take any last questions or comments that you have.
So thank you, Johnny. And I don't see any more questions in the pane, but we have 5 minutes left according to my computer. Can you describe in 5 minutes the National BIM program?
Yeah, in 5 minutes. Well, the National BIM
Challenge
program
accepted.
was, yeah. Yeah. The National BIM program was really birthed out of realizing we needed more strategic aspects and pieces to address the built environment. And I think we realized that there are some overarching pieces. And I mentioned one of them earlier, like the legal and insurance community. They always, related to the built environment, always need to be considered with all that is that impacts the built environment. And I don't think we, as an industry, have really had them at the table of a lot of discussions. So the National BIM program is really intended to cover a lot of different aspects, and one of them is owner adoption. Now, these things are happening like the National BIM standard, different initiatives from the Digital Technology Council. They're also happening in the form of projects. And so we do have a couple of projects related that were birthed out of the National BIM program. And again, in just a couple of minutes, I can't tell you all the aspects of them, but I will tell you one of them is an owner study. And again, happy to share that with Lane and others at CSINext so they can get it out to the rest of you. But this is specifically a survey for owners. So if you're not an owner, then you probably have connections with owners. We're asking owners to respond about their AEC technology adoption. And so there's several questions in there about BIM, digital twin, GIS, even CAD, project management information systems, but it's really supposed to give us a baseline of where owners specifically are in the AEC technology adoption. And it's something that we want to come back and look at again in a couple of years against this baseline, see where we've made progress, dive deeper into what are the drivers that brought about that progress, and then try to replicate that into other areas. Another project we're working on that was birthed out of the National BIM program is ISO 19650 for the US, an annex and a guide. So NBIMS provides a lot of meat, and then you have this ISO framework standard, and we still have a little piece that we want to connect there, and it's in the form of an annex and a guide. And so we're working closely with some folks in academia on putting that together, and that's a project that we're working on. So again, high level, the National BIM program really was conceived to like help connect all of these dots together. And sometimes it's around a standard, but a standard is only one piece of it, right? So it's also about industry engagement, like doing webinars like this, conferences that we've done a lot of, as well as owner adoption and basically giving the project team the tools necessary and enable the conversations necessary to advance the industry. There you go.
All
I did
right.
it in less than 5 minutes.
You did it in 4 minutes. Hey, I
Thanks
want to
so
thank
much
you
for
again,
having me
Johnny,
today. I appreciate it.
for speaking to us today. And I also want to mention that there will be a survey, maybe when you close out of the meeting, that will come up, or you'll receive an email and you can enter your name and AIA number if you're an AIA member, or request a certificate in that survey. So hopefully you can fill that out and complete it and get your learning units. And once again, from CSINext, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you and thank all the attendees. This was a really good session, and you covered a lot of information. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everybody.